In the last week, I've had close to 10 emails from listeners who have seen some reporting about property prices and suggest in their emails that South African authorities should somehow control the number of properties that are bought by foreigners, people who are not South African citizens. And the argument is that because of the exchange rates, whether you're coming in with euros or renminbis or dollars or pounds, you can afford to pay more. So you do pay more, and that pushes up the prices of property everywhere, and it means that people who are not yet in the property market struggle even more to get into the property market. And I'm sure of two things. One is that property prices are significantly on the increase in many areas of Cape Town, and that it is indeed more difficult for somebody in their mid to late 20s or early 30s to buy a decent property in which to live than was the case when I was coming to Cape Town 28 years ago. But how much of that is due to foreigner purchases? That's what I want to discuss with property economist John Loos well, you used to work with a bank, but I don't.
I'm only 50, John, yes.
Okay, so I wasn't sure whether you were still working for them or not, and it doesn't
No
say.
problem.
Yeah. John, is there obvious data which allows a fairly solid conclusion on this matter?
Well, there's the Lightstone data. There's a report in BizTech this week from Lightstone where they estimate foreign buying, and it certainly points to very serious percentages of foreign buying at homes in and around the Cape Peninsula. Scarborough being the highest in this year. Over half of the buyers were in 2024. Were foreign buyers, and it's generally, as I said, it's the peninsula, the Atlantic seaboard, the City Bowl waterfront area. That's where the high percentages of foreign buying are.
But those are not the areas where first-time property buyers are looking to buy. Those are always going to be out of their reach unless they have a massively successful business, whether that's at 35 or 55. So, I mean, to what extent and the number of houses that are sold in Scarborough in a year, probably, I don't know, a couple of dozen at most, if that, maybe even fewer than a dozen, given how small Scarborough is. So I'm not sure that that's hugely telling.
Yeah, so this is the thing. If you take the whole of the city of Cape Town, it's a lot lower than that. The estimates, as I understand from Lightstone here, are about 7% of foreign buyers of all total, not total owners, total buyers. That was in 2024. So that is a lot lower. You'll find a lot less foreign buying out, say, in the northern suburbs or on the Cape Flats and so on. Do you think that's a big influence on the market or for broader Cape Town overall? And you could probably take it broader Western Cape, and you'd also find such a relatively small percentage of foreign buyers relative to locals. I think, John, we must always be very careful of blaming one group. We tend to do that. We tend to hear something about foreigners, or sometimes we have a frequency bias issue. It's a normal cognitive bias. You bump into one or two foreigners buying in your area by coincidence, and you suddenly think they're taking over the whole suburb, but they're not. Certainly I don't think Cape Town's got the presence, the level of foreign residents and homeowners of, say, a city like London. So what is a lot? I don't think we're used to a lot of foreigners yet. But nevertheless, Cape Town has more than the rest of the country, I would say, or the other big cities. It is a relatively popular destination for buyers and for people to come and live compared to elsewhere in South Africa. But there's other factors as well. And I think that the semigrants from up country have probably been far greater in number over the past 2 decades or so. The higher income semigrants, they've moved into not only Cape Town suburb, but down the Southern Cape, up the West Coast in big numbers, significant numbers. And they're probably a bigger group. And then it goes further than that. Cape Town has a greater land scarcity. There's a mountain in the middle. There's sea on 2 sides. It's not landlocked Gauteng with low vacant land values all around where you can create more sprawl more easily. So it's got that land constraint on the supply side, which has been keeping it at higher values for a few decades, a number of decades. And then Cape Town is probably outperforming economically because of that attraction and retention of skilled labor and affluence, which means that there's more people probably getting decent jobs in Cape Town than many other provinces in the country, who then create demand as well for residential property. So there's a few factors. I put it down to Cape Town being the more popular destination to live, and therefore this significant influx of people, not only high income but low income too, which puts pressure upward pressure on the property market. That's one of the consequences of being a popular destination.
Nothing there then to suggest there's any need to look at restricting overseas purchases of Cape Townian or other South African property.
Well, some people would believe there's a need to restrict overseas purchases. Some might even go further and say there's a need to restrict people from other provinces. I don't know, but the point is, first, how do you do that? I'm not quite sure what regulatory capabilities are to get that right, whether it's for rental, putting limits on rentals or stopping foreigners from buying. But the other thing we've got to realize is, many of us want the economy to grow. Now, foreigners come here with purchasing power. The ones that buy in Cape Town come with very significant purchasing power. Sometimes they come here with skills too, if they're a working part of the population, or foreigners come as tourists and then they occupy Airbnb properties. That's a bone of contention as well, because it's crowding out long-term rentals in around the city bowl.
And the city, John, is responding to that by trying to track down all of those people who run Airbnbs as a business rather than a kind of side hustle, and make them pay rates that hotels pay to try and sort of even that playing field.
Yeah. But you always got to think about, if you want to curb the levels of foreign visitors and people coming to live here or invest here, you're going to curb something regarding the economy, and you're possibly going to limit local job creation too in some way from what it would otherwise have been. So that's the choice we've got to make. And to me, it's more about trying to boost supply, trying to create other high-density nodes in areas in Cape Town where we build a lot more residential stock, and create other parts of Cape Town which are appealing for people to live, and where many more can live, because the population is certainly growing at a steady pace, and taking more of the economy out to areas which are typically dormitory towns on the Cape Flats and so on. But
John, I need to interrupt because I have one last question, and I need a quick answer, please, because we're already a little late for news. Just levy a tax. Is a tax on overseas purchases of South African property something worth investigating?
I'm not convinced. I think sort out the supply side of property, make Cape Town appealing for more people. That's how you boost economic and job creation. But boost the supply side.
Thank you very much, John Loos, property economist.